You are being dragged through the crowded streets of Thebes, the dust rising beneath your bare feet as jeering faces close in around you. The sun burns your skin. You are stripped naked, your crime tattooed across your forehead. Where once your nose marked your identity, now there is only a jagged wound. Every eye in the marketplace turns to you, not with pity but with satisfaction. You are no longer a person. You are a warning. This was not the twisted imagination of a tyrant. It was the deliberate design of a civilization celebrated as one of the most advanced in human history, ancient Egypt. Beneath the grandeur of the pyramids, the golden tombs, and the radiant image of divine kingship, there existed another Egypt, one ruled not only by law but by the unyielding concept of maat, the principle of truth, harmony, and cosmic order. To violate maat was more than a crime. It was a fracture in the fabric of the universe. And to restore balance, justice had to be seen, felt, and remembered. Thus, Egyptian punishments were not always about inflicting pain. They were about inflicting shame. The philosophy of punishment, restoring maat. The Egyptian worldview revolved around maat, the divine balance upheld by gods and kings alike. It governed everything: rivers, stars, speech, and human conduct. When someone lied, stole, or blasphemed, they disrupted this sacred equilibrium. The purpose of punishment was not revenge. It was restoration. But restoration required more than imprisonment or execution. It demanded public spectacle because justice had to be visible. To shame the guilty was to teach the innocent. Egyptians believed that when the public witnessed humiliation, maat was reaffirmed. The law itself was fluid, often guided by the will of the pharaoh or local magistrates. There were no universal codes carved in stone like Hammurabi's laws of Babylon. Instead, Egyptian justice was moral, situational, and symbolic. Crimes were measured not only by their social damage but by their spiritual weight. Punishment, therefore, became a blend of law, religion, and performance, a theater of shame. Mutilation of the nose, a mark of eternal disgrace among the most dehumanizing punishments in Egyptian history, was the cutting of the nose. The act appears in legal texts, wall reliefs, and administrative papyri. It was inflicted upon temple robbers, adulterers, deserters, and those who dared to insult the divine authority of the pharaoh. Why the nose? Because it was visible, a permanent public mark of disgrace. The nose defined the human face. Its removal erased individuality. In Egyptian language, the word ash, or ashem, referred both to the nose and to the breath of life. To lose it symbolized the loss of one's ka, the spiritual essence that animated a person. A mutilated face proclaimed guilt louder than any written record. Even after the pain faded, the stigma endured. In temples and marketplaces, those without noses were living reminders of divine justice. They were exiled socially, sometimes geographically, banished from cities, stripped of family ties, and condemned to wander as walking warnings. In one chilling text from the Middle Kingdom, an official writes, "Let the nose be cut off, that all may know his deceit. Let his name be spoken with scorn, as one who has broken faith with maat." For scribes, priests, or temple servants, the punishment was doubly cruel. Their professions relied on face and reputation. To be mutilated was not merely to be injured, it was to be erased from the community of the living. Tattooed shame. Crimes written on flesh tattoos in Egypt are among the oldest known to humanity. Archaeological discoveries on mummified bodies, especially female mummies from Deir el-Medina and Thebes, show intricate ink markings used for religious devotion, fertility symbols, or protection charms. But not all tattoos carried sacred meaning. For criminals, enslaved people, and repeat offenders, tattooing became a sentence. Authorities inked words like thief, deserter, or prostitute directly onto the body. In one record from Deir el-Medina, women accused of sleeping with high officials were branded across the arms or shoulders, areas visible during daily labor. Imagine serving wine to guests, your movements exposing the mark of your disgrace. Every gesture became an act of humiliation. Unlike a prison sentence which ends, a tattoo lasted forever, a living record of moral contamination. What made these punishments even more haunting was their duality. The same society that celebrated tattoos as sacred marks of devotion could also weaponize them as instruments of shame. Egyptian justice knew how to twist symbols of sanctity into scars of dishonor. Public flogging and the parade of shame punishment in ancient Egypt was not confined to secret chambers. It was meant to be seen. Public floggings were common, and the spectacle was deliberate. Criminals were stripped, tied to posts, or paraded through city streets while guards whipped them. Crowds were encouraged to laugh, mock, or spit. The idea was simple: make the sinner a lesson. A public beating restored maat by dramatizing the cost of disobedience. Imagine a temple scribe accused of falsifying records. Before his peers, he is bound in the courtyard, his scrolls burned before his eyes, his back opened by the lash. He is not executed, because death would end the lesson too quickly. Instead, he is left alive, branded by shame, his colleagues forced to witness the destruction of his honor. Egyptian inscriptions describe similar scenes. In one, a corrupt granary official is beaten before the storehouse, that all scribes may fear deceit. Another recounts, a thief stripped naked before the gate of Amun, his hands bound, his tongue confessing under whip. This was not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was pedagogy by pain. Egypt's justice system relied on memory, and nothing imprinted memory like public humiliation. Forced labor. The collapse of status. The ancient Egyptians valued hierarchy above all. Every person, from pharaoh to farmer, had a designated place in the cosmic order. To lose that place was devastating. Convicts were often sent to forced labor, to the quarries of Tura, the mines of Sinai, or the massive canal projects of the Middle Kingdom. But it wasn't just physical punishment. It was symbolic demotion. For nobles, priests, or scribes accustomed to silk garments and sacred halls, being chained beside common criminals was a living death. Papyrus records describe these convicts as those whose hearts maat has left. One particularly grim text tells of a disgraced court official forced to drag stone under the desert sun, his every lash recorded by temple scribes. In Egypt, slavery was not always permanent. Some could regain freedom, but a criminal laborer, especially one branded or mutilated, was beyond redemption. His punishment was not just to toil, but to serve as the living embodiment of broken order. Punishing women. The politics of exposure. Women in ancient Egypt enjoyed more rights than in most contemporary societies. They could inherit property, initiate divorce, and manage businesses. But when women violated moral or religious codes, their punishments were especially gendered and profoundly humiliating. For crimes like adultery, prostitution, or temple impurity, women were subjected to public exposure. They could be stripped, their heads and eyebrows shaved. A grave insult, since hair was a symbol of beauty and fertility. Some were tied to gates or marketplaces, branded with their crimes, or tattooed as warnings. Egyptian records hint at such cases. One papyrus mentions a chantress of Amun accused of impurity, who was flogged and dismissed publicly. In another, a maidservant marked for sleeping with her master bore her punishment on her back, a permanent shadow of disgrace. This gendered humiliation reinforced social control. In a culture that prized female modesty, to strip a woman publicly was to destroy her spiritual and social standing. Her body became a stage on which order was restored and shame performed. The final erasure, death beyond death. Perhaps the most terrifying punishment in Egyptian culture was not physical at all. It was erasure, the destruction of one's memory, name, and afterlife. For Egyptians, death was not the end. To live forever, one's name, Ren, had to be spoken, one's image preserved, one's body mummified. To remove these was to annihilate the soul. This practice, known later by the Roman phrase damnatio memoriae, had its earliest roots in Egypt. A traitor or heretic could be denied burial, his tomb sealed or destroyed, his name chiseled from inscriptions. Statues were smashed, faces gouged out, records rewritten. Pharaohs used this punishment on rivals, most famously Akhenaten, whose revolutionary worship of the sun disk Aten led later kings to erase him from history. To be forgotten was to die twice, first in the flesh, then in the spirit. No eternity, no afterlife, just silence. The psychology of humiliation. Why such obsession with shame? Because humiliation was a form of social death, and social death, in a collective society like Egypt, was worse than physical death. Egyptians believed that identity existed only through community. To be outcast was to cease existing within Maat. Humiliation worked because it was visible. It reminded the populace of divine order. Every mutilated face, every tattooed arm, every erased name became a moral mirror for society. The goal was not merely deterrence, it was purification. In the end, punishment in Egypt was less about vengeance and more about balance. Yet to modern eyes, it exposes the dark brilliance of a civilization that understood how deeply shame cuts. Pain fades. Humiliation endures. Reflections from the modern world centuries. Later, the tools have changed, but the instinct remains. Today, we do not cut noses or tattoo foreheads. Instead, we tweet, expose, cancel, and shame. Our punishments unfold on screens rather than in markets. The principle is hauntingly familiar: to make wrongdoing visible, unforgettable, and shared. Perhaps that is why ancient Egypt feels closer than we think. The Egyptians built monuments to eternity, but they also built systems of justice designed to haunt memory itself. So the question lingers: have we truly evolved beyond the spectacle of humiliation? Or have we simply digitized it? Final words: when we imagine Egypt, we see pyramids, gold, and gods. But beneath that glittering perfection lay a world obsessed with order and terrified of chaos. In that world, justice was not blind, it was theatrical. It had an audience. The punishments of ancient Egypt did not just wound the body, they broke the spirit. They were lessons written in flesh, stone, and memory, designed to remind every citizen that to defy Maat was to defy existence itself. And so, from the mutilated nose to the erased tomb, Egypt's justice system left scars that outlasted empires. What do you think? Was humiliation truly more powerful than pain? Could shame ever serve justice, or only destroy it? If this journey through ancient Egypt's darker truths fascinated you, give this video a thumbs up, share it with history lovers, and subscribe for more forgotten stories that shaped our world. Thanks for watching, and for remembering the ones history tried to forget.